Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. This is a show about how artists use technology to tell their stories, and I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Today is officially Disclosure Day on the podcast. I am happy to welcome back several friends of the show to talk about the incredible sound work in Steven Spielberg's latest film. Joining us today is supervising sound editor Brian Chumney, two-time Oscar-winning re-recording mixer Andy Nelson, and the legendary seven-time Oscar winner Gary Rydstrom, who worked as the film's supervising sound editor, sound designer, and re-recording mixer. We actually had all three of these guys on the show a couple of years ago to talk about Steven Spielberg's take on West Side Story, and I'm so glad to have them all back because this film could not be more different in style and tone. But before we get into that, be forewarned that we will discuss some spoilers. It's kind of unavoidable when talking about a conspiracy thriller shrouded in mystery. So if you want to go in totally cold, which I do recommend for this film, then you should hit pause on this show and check out the movie before digging into this conversation with the sound team. And of course, I suggest that you go see it in a Dolby Cinema near you because the movie looks amazing in Dolby Vision and it sounds fantastic in Dolby Atmos. This movie starts strong out of the gate with a gonzo POV sequence of a wrestler literally getting stomped on. So that's where I wanted to start the conversation, by talking about that opening sequence and how it set the tone for the rest of the film. Here is supervising sound editor, sound designer, and re-recording mixer, Gary Rydstrom.
Well, it wasn't what I think audiences expect. And what's fun for me is not only is it this, we're just explode into this wrestling scene out of nowhere. But the lead up to it, which is over the opening credits, it was a Spielberg idea to have the sound, even though it eventually becomes the sound of a wrestling match, to have it weirded up a little bit. So you don't know quite what it is. And you're expecting, for those people who don't know the movie, if you don't know that starts with the wrestling scene, you hear that and you think you're going to, see a UFO or an alien or an attack or something sci-fi, because the sounds are weird. But then when the foot lifts off the camera, you're, oh my God, we're in a wrestling scene. So I love the sucker punch of that.
I actually said to somebody the other day, they were asking about something at the beginning. They hadn't seen it. And I said, it does start with quite a punch. And I didn't realize as I was saying it, it was literally, it starts with a punch. But, for me, it was really with Gary, it was about finding, how to have that incredible sort of power and opening, but still reveal our first couple of lines of dialogue from our characters, which were really crucial. And we played around with those levels quite a bit so that we didn't have to sort of dial it back quite so harshly, but it definitely was important. And funnily enough, setting up the screenings recently, everybody paid attention to how that first line sounded because we knew then we were in good shape. So it took a little while to do that. But no, I think that opening was a wonderful misdirect at the beginning to have that sort of spacey sound become the real crowd at the wrestling scene. It was brilliant.
And literally the audience gets kicked in the face a couple of times. I love that, whatever that means. Kicked
in the face, hit with a chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a wild opening.
And by the way, I will point out that since Brian is a wrestling expert more than I am, so we counted on Brian. I don't know if he admits it or not, but he knows an awful lot about wrestling.
Your Foley team must have had a lot of fun with that sequence.
Oh yeah, no, they had. There was a lot of also loop group. I mean, the crowd is a big part of it. So we had some natural wrestling crowds, but the loop group was a big part of it too because it's raucous. It's definitely raucous.
Yeah, it was definitely fun to be directing the group and essentially reenacting a match for them to cheer. And we had a great, Barbara Harris put together a great crew. So it was really fun to do.
I want to ask you guys about your collaboration with Steven Spielberg. Brian, you're the relative newcomer on the team. I have down here that you started as an ADR editor on Warhorse in 2011.
ADR assistant. Actually, I was John Knoll's assistant on that one. So I wasn't really a full editor on any of them until Bridge of Spies.
Amazing. And Gary, I noticed on IMDb, you're listed as an audio technician. You have an audio technician credit on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 1984.
I think that was my first credit. I was machine room operator. And so I did machine room operating for Temple of Doom and some of the early stuff. Yeah. I think Always is the first mixing credit I got.
Always in 1989. And then Andy, you started with Hook in 91. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, 91. And pretty much all of them ever since, really, along with Gary, a lot of different ones, and Brian recently. So yeah, it's a great collaboration. And the thing, my experience with Steven, I don't know how you guys feel, but I love the fact that he lets us, sort of start to tell the story and present things that then we sort of will work together to fine tune. But he's very freeing in that sense and enjoys that opportunity for us to present some thoughts and ideas. But Gary obviously gets involved much earlier than I do with any form of design work and stuff. Mine's more about just when we're all together, But Gary's involved much earlier, of course, and Brian.
Well, Steve, one of the good things about working with Steven is he's open to. A lot of directors are nervous about hearing something for the first time. The final mix can be scary because it's big, and often you're hearing things you've never heard before. But he's open to it. If it works, he's enthusiastic. If it doesn't work, he tells you. It's kind of the way it should be.
But also, he doesn't fall in love, as is the case with some people, with a sort of a manicured temp dub that's done over, that then sort of it puts the final mix in difficult situations. Sometimes he's much more open to that by not spending a lot of time temporarily preparing the soundtrack. He leaves it up to us for the final.
And they even get us involved on the dialogue side in pre-production, just to make sure we're communicating with our location sound team, and we listen to the first week, usually the first week of dailies. They're in touch with us to make sure that everything's working and sounding good.
And Gary, tell me a little bit about obviously with the sound design, you're working much earlier, as Andy said. But what's the mechanism? Like, how does that collaboration with Steven work? Are you sending stuff to the cutting room, or are you going down and playing stuff for him periodically, or how does it? What's the nature of that collaboration? How does he give you feedback before you get to the final mix?
The first thing is, I remember I just looked up, Brian and I read the script, and Andy too, but it's almost 2 years ago. It was a while ago. So the first step is to, even before they start shooting, is to talk to him. And in my experience, he has a fairly succinct direction to start with. I remember on Minority Report, he said, "Don't make it sound like Star Wars." So that was my, nothing against George and Ben, but that's what he said. On this one, we came to the one-word direction, which was empathy. So the movie, anytime that we can have a sense of empathy, that opening shot, if you think about it, the wrestler, it's a POV shot. It's within keeping, this empathy theme in the movie. You can, connect with people or disconnect, but feel internalized with other people's feelings. So that's what he said early on. And I usually don't play him stuff early, but in this one, there were some sounds that had to be created before the shoot. So Emily Blunt doing that clicking sound that had to be created before they shot so she could mime to it on the set. So there was lots of back and forth with Steven about that. And that also led to some related alien sounds for the real aliens later on, which I went back and forth with him too. Partly because he wanted to play, there's a interrogation scene with an alien, and he wanted to play some sounds to Eve Hewson, who's the actor that had to react to the video in the movie. So we played, a version of my poor alien being tortured sounds for her to react. Aside from that, I didn't really send too much stuff early. He's very trusting for what he cares about or what needs to happen for the shoot. We do early, but everything else we kind of talk about it, and then he sees it in the final.
Brian, tell us a little bit about the production tracks and working with the dialogue on the film and supporting Andy through his premix.
Yeah, I think Drew's tracks were great as always. Like Andy mentioned earlier, we really didn't have much ADR. The ADR that we did do was additive. It was mostly just additional little touches. But there weren't any scenes where we had problems. And Rich Quinn was our other dialogue editor on the film, and he of course is excellent. And it was we had time to prep it and we had time to premix, and it really worked out great.
Brian, tell the story about the pilots you had come down for that one.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So one of the things we did work on were at the beginning of when Daniel hits play, and that first batch of of all the media that's been stolen. There is UAP flight footage or footage from Navy pilots. And that was one thing that we kind of went through several versions of trying to really find the right thing. Steven wanted it to sound like pilots. And, our loop group, Barbara Harris put together a great group of groupers, but they weren't real pilots.
You can kind of tell, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, well then in that case, we need to get real pilots. So we put together a group of, I think there's 6 of them, 6 or maybe 8, real ex-military, ex-Navy or Air Force pilots. One of them, which actually lives up in Sonoma and flew down for the session that we did at Fox. And that was what we ended up using were those guys. And they were great. It was exactly what the scene needed, authenticity.
Tell me about the mixing process with Steven. So I presume he's not a director who's going to hang out on the pre-dub stage and watch you, Andy, while you're pre-mixing dialogue. So this is kind of gets to what you were saying about earlier. Like, he gives you some time. What do you prep a first couple of reels to play back for him, or what's he responding to?
I mean, I think the thing that we've tended to do is to get into a rhythm where we'll get a pass at the. We don't go deep into too much detail. We just want to get the sense of it. Are we getting the right tone of the story telling? And I think so. If he came in and we were just starting at the very, very beginning, I think he'd get irritated immediately just because we'd be trying to find stuff out for ourselves. There are directors that will do that, of course. But he's not really one of those. And it doesn't serve anybody to do it that way. Whereas the way we do it is I love Gary's expression. It's like a wide brush stroke, really, that we put across the reel. It's just one reel at a time, obviously. And it's to sort of go, okay, are we in the right direction, And hopefully we nearly always are, then it becomes about what can we do with all the different scenes to start to sweeten them and tune them in a little bit more and things like that. So it's great. And he will hang out with us and we'll do some work with him. And sometimes he'll disappear and say, I'll have another look tomorrow. And Gary and I and Brian will go through and get a bit more detail in and stuff like that. But it's pretty, it's really collaborative. And I think it's a great way to work, personally, having worked with lots of different types of directors, as both Brian and Gary have. I like this way of working because I think it allows us freedom, but always with the intention that he's going to find it. Look, he's so great. He'll pick out immediately if something's not right. He's like laser sharp. But what's beautiful is when stuff is good, he doesn't dwell on it, because I've worked with many directors who will say, this is all great. Now let's start all over again. He'll never do that. If 2/3 of it's good, then that's going to stay and we're going to work on the third that isn't. Wouldn't you say, Gary?
Oh, yeah. No, here's the thing. He loves the process. He loves what we do in sound. And sometimes our problem is keeping him away, because he says, how much time do you need on this reel before I come back? And you try to ask for a day and he's, I'll come back tomorrow afternoon. He enjoys it. But Andy's right. We try to, give it the broad strokes and then he loves the detail then. I think if we get the broad strokes right, he likes delving into the detail to fine tune. It gets to a very fine tuned state, and like Andy said, when he likes something, not only does he continue to like it, but he lets you know that he likes it, which is also a rare thing sometimes.
There is one other thing that's important to this, is that with a lot of people, when the music comes in, that puts a whole different element in, and we're sort of searching our way through things to find out if cues are good, if they're working, and things in a lot of other movies. The relationship between Steven and John in this and in every one of his movies really is that the music's going to be placed where they want it to be placed. It's all pre-planned, it's pre-thought. We're not battling with how we're going to make this work. Generally speaking, there's a beautiful flow to all that stuff. And I think that is the other big plus that gets us forward quickly. I mean, Gary and I know when we're mixing that when the music cue comes in, Steven's going to want to hear it. So we're going to present it, and then we're going to sort of tune it and dial it in with Steven. But it's not about figuring out the music the way that a lot of directors are. It's about, making it as beautiful as we possibly can with John's music.
A lot of these movies famously have, I mean, from my standpoint, we have a scene that Steven and John Williams have decided no music up front. You know, the opening of Private Ryan or the T-Rex attack in Jurassic. This movie's got a few of them, but one of them is the train action scene, which is great. So we detailed it and made it sound great. And then Steven tried to play a joke on me, where we had, after having worked on it for a long time and everyone thought it was working, he said, okay, now I'd like to try it with John tried to write a piece for this, and I think we should try it with the music. And, it took me at least a minute to figure out he was joking. But yeah, that would be, but, he's very good at spotting where the music goes, and it has a purpose every time. And that, a lot of my job is to work with the music and not get in its way.
So, Gary, do you know what John Williams is going to be doing while you're pre-mixing, or at what point do those music tracks start to show up? Is it really during the final, or at what point do you become kind of aware, like, how this dance is going to have to start happening between the score and the sound design?
I think, Brian, you remember, I think some of the actual score trickled in while we were pre-mixing so we could listen to it. There was a temp score up until then. So we had some. Usually, and especially with John Williams, we get it. I don't really hear it until the final. That's the way he works. He doesn't mock up something like other composers do these days. He waits and records with the full orchestra. And often that's, just before the final. The one time that he didn't was AI, the Spielberg movie AI, and I had the score way before the premix, and we were able to really integrate with the John Williams score in that movie. So I know generally where he's going with it, but I don't have the real final music to listen to until closer to the final.
And then, are there temps? Does Steven Spielberg does he preview? No.
Have you guys? I've never done a temp. Andy, have you ever done one?
I've done this is my 21st picture with Steven, and I think we've done two that I can remember, two previews.
Which did Bridge of Spies.
Oh, we did a Bridge of Spies? Did we do a temp?
I did a Bridge of Spies temp once, yep.
But it was for a preview, was it, Brian?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Must have been, yeah. So three then that I know of.
And that's interesting. So does he, I'm just curious, he's also famously secretive, right? I remember when I was at Skywalker and we were doing international foreign dubs for maybe one of the Indiana Jones, and we got a black and white copy with just a little circle that would go around on screen to the actors' mouths. That's how secretive he was about letting any of this stuff out. So is that part of it? Like he doesn't want anybody to have access to or see the film before he's ready for it to be shown.
Brian, didn't you work on this one with those rotoscope?
Oh yeah, well no, we don't even, for like ADR and loop group, and we don't even work with that. We just work without picture. So it's they don't even do that. But they do for international. Yeah, for the international folks, they'll do the whole rotoscope thing. But yeah, no, we don't even worry about. It just takes it off the realm of possibilities. It's just like no picture.
I think we've all got used to it, right? Yeah, we've just got used to it. It's pretty normal.
It's an interesting question why he doesn't. I don't know why other directors want to get an audience reaction. I think my guess is that he doesn't like a lot of people to see his film until he's really finished or happy with it. I think to show an in progress film hurts him. It doesn't want people to see something not perfected or close to it. I don't know. I don't know what other reason, but he doesn't. The other truth is his instincts are as good as anyone's about audiences, right? So he can get away with it.
I remember, Gary, you were talking about sort of figuring out the alien dialect, and I wanted to dig into that a little bit more. I remember one of the first trailer I saw for the film, and it ended with the clicking sounds. And at that point, I didn't know what this was. I remember, Gary, I emailed you, and I was like, "What am I hearing in this trailer?" And you were cautious enough not to respond. So
or rude. I don't know.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So. And we know from Emily Blunt's appearance on the podcast Hot Ones that that's a lot of her own vocalization. So tell me a little bit about that process and figuring that out, and then her creation of some of that stuff and how you worked with that. And that all had to happen before principal photography, right?
Yeah, so I was actually there the first day that Emily and Steven worked together, which was on a soundstage in New York. So I came out to record it. I want to clarify something because Emily is in the press. She said that some guy came up to her and said, "Would you like to have your voice recorded into AI? And then the AI could make this weird sound." That was me. I asked her if she wanted to do AI. I was wrong. I take it all back. Not only is she brilliant, but it was the wrong suggestion. Forget AI. No more AI. So once she turned down that idea, I went to New York, Steven and Emily on a stage, and I had a collection of weird sounds, just animal sounds and other sounds as inspiration. Because we walked into the stage not knowing what this language would be like. We honed in on, and it was really Steven's idea, the click idea, which is, an African language or even a dolphin click, something. And the reason he wanted that or liked that is because it sounded mathematical. So Daniel in the movie can understand this language, and he's a mathematician. He's a savant that way. So it had to sound mechanical. So Emily Blunt, turns out she can make really interesting sounds. And we put a microphone on her throat and got it recorded in a funny way, but it's all her. Then I would chop it into a pattern that I liked for the movie. And once Steven approved that, that's what they played back on the set, and she mimed to it beautifully. So it's really all her. No AI was used in the creation of that sound.
Gary, I'm curious about, because obviously you've got, as you mentioned earlier, you've got sequences with the actual aliens also doing. You've got that torture sequence, and then you've also got with the character in Vivo 17 at the very end of the film. Kind of like we don't really clearly hear what he's saying, but you get the sense of what he's. So were there differences in kind of what were you doing with Emily versus the actual aliens speaking the language as well?
Well, the source stuff, for the real aliens, it's really from animal and other, from cats and a variety of things, and a little bit of human for the screams. But it was all based on what Emily started with. So the click thing. So even when you see the real alien, there's always a click element. It's not Emily Blunt anymore, but there's clicks taken from animals or mechanisms or humans to do that. The final alien that we see, what I like about that language, it's click based as well, but it's whispered. It's small. It's not shouted. It's not, and you relate it. You can. I hope you think that's the same language that Emily Blunt spoke. But he's whispering something, and God knows what it is. Must be something important to Daniel. But that's all made to. It's inspired by what Emily Blunt did, and then I took other creatures and turned it into an alien language itself.
Andy, I've got some questions for you about John Williams' score. This is, I believe, his 30th collaboration with Steven, and he's 94 and still making this amazing music. Andy, tell me about collaborating with John's team and how the music comes to you and how you're integrating it into the mix once you get it onto the stage.
So, the team has been the same for quite a while now, which is great. The key people for us, other than John, of course, is his music editor, Romero Belgard, who's with him a lot through the writing process, through the recordings and through the delivery to the stage, and obviously with us on the stage. Very, very key collaborator is Romero. Sean Murphy, of course, captures the orchestra fabulously and has done so for many, many years. And this one, he tried something even more exciting for me, and it worked out beautifully, which was to capture a little bit of very specific overhead mics to use in the Dolby Atmos format. And I figured out a way to carry the position of what he had intended through onto the mix stage by just playing with some pans until I felt it was sitting in the right place. And then, like all overhead music microphones, I generally go through the process of switching it on and off because I never want it to be apparent, but it's lovely when you take it away and it feels like something's very slightly missing. So it's just a very, very fine balance of where it sits. But other than that, it was regular 7.1 stems with the addition of the 4 overhead mics. and recorded at Sony Studios, where they've been recording most of John's scores for many years. And it was just heaven. It always is. Every time I put a piece of his music up, it was just glorious. But yes, and a lot of collaboration also with using synth pads and things for pulses and things like that. So it had momentum to it, as well as just the beautiful classic sound of the orchestra. Boy, it was a real treat, this one. And John, yes, 94, delivering a score like that, all handwritten again, the way he's always done it. Mind blowing.
I was struck by how kind of restrained the score was, and there were a lot of sequences where I might have expected score, but that they were entirely led by sound design. Gary, you mentioned the. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that is by design with Steven in the edit room and John, and when they all go through these, and that's what's great about it. It's not like us not playing something and going, well, we don't need it here. It's about the fact it's been designed that way. And so you're not trying to battle over things. And the restrained aspect is really the nature of what Gary was saying about the film with empathy. It's a sense of just sort of gentle understanding, and the beautiful piece at the very end of the film is an expansion of Margaret's theme, which is used very, very gently throughout when the contacts are made. But the evolution of that is really at the very end, and that's what's so glorious about John's music. He's just teasing until you need the final wallop, and he can deliver that. So, but yeah, it's never we never really battle, do we, Gary? That's what's fun about this. It's always by design and with its purpose. I mean, there's music in films, and we've all worked on them, that's just there for tension creating or momentum, of should I say, more than tension. And very rarely does Steven require that. The momentum's in the way it's been cut and prepared and shot, as opposed to relying on music to do that, if you see what I mean.
100%. And Gary, you were saying earlier that the train sequence, didn't have score behind it, and I do want to talk about the train sequence. But the other one that kind of really stood out to me was the farmhouse sequence, and Kellner, after he comes back from the field and he realizes that the agents from Vortex Corp are about to take Jane away, and he has that kind of that long tracking shot where he's going down the fence, and I sort of like, that's a moment when I think a lot of other directors would have put score in there, but he really just it's breathing and Foley, and just it's really, but it's very intense. Yeah, absolutely.
No, and by the way, the camera in that shot's crazy. The drone going in and out through the fence and back, it's incredible. But no, I think the tension is exactly in that. What would music have given us that we didn't already get from the actor and the scenery and the sound of the agents in the distance?
Steven's focus on that mix-wise with from my standpoint, was the footsteps. He really was. You're with him. What happens when a scene plays like that with no music is you're in some ways with the character that in this case is trying to sneak around and not be caught. And so it allows you with the breathing, and I don't remember how much of that was production or after the fact, but the combination of the breathing and the footsteps, you're with Daniel.
Yeah, 100%. And then of course it goes bonkers when he, crashes through the farmhouse, and that, but that must have been for Brian and Gary, that sequence must have been a lot of fun for you guys to work on.
Oh yeah, it was great. And I love one of my favorite bits of the movie is that little bit of silence before the car goes busting through the farmhouse that they built, right? That farmhouse was built specifically for the movie so that they could then crash a car through it.
I like what Daniel's saying during that when he's getting Jane. He just said, "What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?" It's an action scene where every character should be saying that when they're doing something crazy, right? I'm driving through a house being chased by the bad guys. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Love that.
Brian, I appreciate you calling that out. We had David Collins on the podcast a couple of weeks ago talking about Star Wars, the Maul animated series, and he invoked you, Gary. He explained, David Collins explained that you were the one who taught him that fine art of taking the track down to almost nothing right before a big moment happens. And when I saw that crash through the farmhouse sequence, I thought about that. That was very nicely crafted.
No, you can't make something loud unless it comes after something relatively quiet. Otherwise, it won't seem loud. So, yeah, I'm glad that I was able to pass on to at least one person my.
The music then comes back when they're in the car and she pulls out the knife, but that's exactly the right place for the music to come back. So
because she's now the threat's become inside the car as opposed to outside. So of course it's a great moment to sort of go, uh-oh, this is going to get bad. So yeah, it's a perfect timing. And then, yeah, again, it's just knowing exactly where the music should start and the intention of what the music's supposed to do. That's so clever there.
Gary, I want to come back to that train sequence because it is a showstopper and just an extraordinary, visual effects, obviously, but what a great showcase for sound design. Tell us about your approach to that sequence, because it goes on for a long time too. So you've got to keep it varied to kind of keep it interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a great. What's great about it, it's different than you might expect. I mean, we're being dragged along. Their car gets stuck underneath a moving train and then dragged along, which I hadn't seen before. And then one of the things we in the soundtrack are helping to establish is another train starts coming from the distance, and so that's coming. So they kind of have to hurry up. And that's a great action sequence. We take advantage every time there's a perspective cut, we're on top of the train, below the train, even before they get caught, where is the crossing bell? Is it to the right, to the left? So it's shifting perspective a lot, which gives you some tension, making use of that. Steve Bissinger, our effects editor, cut that scene, did a great job overall. And then on the final mix stage, Kirsten Mate, who was our lead sound effects editor, we added things, including a lot of sounds that are rhythmic that would give you a sense of a car being dragged along a track. So and that kind of stuff, which was unique to that scene. So that was a classic action scene. But what I think is, when I read the script, the first thing I said to Spielberg when I talked to him on the phone was, I love the piano idea in the train car. And and these guys will tell you that in the mix, I was worried that I didn't take advantage of it because it's such a good opportunity for, a scene that's designed to have the surroundings support the psychology of the scene. So Margaret is having a breakdown and it's supported by all these pianos. So I cut that scene myself because I wanted it to be so good. And it's internal. Again, empathy, right? You're getting inside her head. And it was important enough to Steven that on the set, he took time with the sound crew. And I have recordings of Steven himself banging and moving the pianos around because he knew that sound was going to be important. A lot of the sound in there is from the director messing with pianos on the set. And we added to it, made it crazier. But my favorite sound for that is within it ends in a moment of calm, when Daniel puts her hand on the strings and it's supposed to resonate in a more harmonic chord. And we figured out a couple ways to have piano strings resonate in a harmonic way. And one is to sing or to vocalize close into piano strings and then record the resonating strings that are after the singing. So there's a human element even to the strings resonating out at the end that felt, again, empathetic, human. But what a great, both halves of that train scene were great for sound and designed to be great for sound.
Glenn, we had to drag Gary away from the mixing board because he that was a scene that it was so important as it was indeed that he would have spent. He could be mixing that right now if you gave him a chance.
I do want to say I have been remixing it. I'm going to send it to you guys. It's going to be so much better.
Like you said earlier,
It's
Like you said
really
earlier, right? Like it was almost 2 years ago or however long ago is when we read the script and we all walked away having like that scene we knew
yeah,
was going to be important.
such an important scene.
Yeah,
But
so it's nice to be here and have everyone appreciate it.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because, Gary, you and I've had numerous conversations about this over the years, but it's those great sound design moments almost never happen by accident on the mixing stage. They have to be thought of at the script stage, and they have to be, the scene has to be shot in such a way to allow some of those great sound design moments, and then edited in such a way to allow you to have that room. But I look, when they dropped down into that train car and I realized what was in there, I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah. Well, in my experience, pretty much what I'm really proud of, a great sound moment in movies I've done were planned by the filmmaker. It's not something that I added after the fact. It's something, the really good sound moments in movies are planned.
yeah, and at the end of the day, in that scene, we had to focus on Margaret and the panic attack, and so it was about creating that cacophonous world, but still making sure we went back into the very essence of what this was. Her own sort of breakdown at that moment. And as Gary said, that beautiful, harmonious moment at the end is just gorgeous. I actually, as I watch it, even now, I feel my breathing calming down through that sound. It's extraordinary. It's incredibly calming. The other quick thing is that during the train sequence itself, prior to going into that's actually a great Atmos area for sound, because the full range surrounds that Atmos gives you allows for the thunder of the train to go right around the room, which you can only really do in Atmos. So I think that was a really good example of using Dolby Atmos for that scene alone.
And then Gary, I know you're doing a lot of sound design. You have your home studio up in the Pacific Northwest at an undisclosed location. But what's your setup up there? Do you have a 7.1.4 room, or what kind of environment are you doing your sound design in?
I've got my room is 5.1, but to listen, I can listen to Atmos. They're on headphones, so we have ways at the ranch. We have a system that they analyze how you listen to, and I did it in our mixing stage. An earlier system, I did it on Andy's stage at Fox. Analyze how I'm listening and how my headphones are working. And these days, it's pretty darn good. I can listen to what really does sound like a full Atmos mix if I want to. The psychology of it that's rough is that the image is not as big. But for analyzing or thinking in terms of mixing stage, it's amazing what I can do. Combination of the room, my 5.1 room, but then it's amazing what you can get across on headphones.
Yeah. And then are you going down to Skywalker Ranch for the pre-dubs, or do you just go straight down to Fox? Oh, you do. No, you pre-mix at the ranch.
Yeah, we pre-mix the effects and Foley. Chris Garbozio pre-mixed the Foley. Even though he was in the middle of, being feted by the Academy for his work on one battle after another, but he took the time out from all
Chris
that.
Chris has had a good year, that's for
all
sure.
All that awards time to do our Foley, he did a brilliant job. But yeah, I came down to Skywalker, and Andy was pre-mixing the dialogue at Fox, and then we did 4 or 5 weeks at Skywalker, and then went down to Fox and finished it up.
So Brian, and then how does that affect you? Like, where are you? If you got Andy pre-dubbing in LA and Gary pre-dubbing at the ranch, where you've obviously splitting your crew, but where are you paying your attention?
I'm usually at the ranch for the first part because Gary has more time on the effects and Foley side than we do in dialogue. So I'll be there for the first half, and then I'll go down to Fox for the full dialogue premix, and then everyone else kind of mans the ship back at the ranch.
But we send stuff back and forward, Glenn. I mean, what's nice is when I've finished a pass of the reel from the dialogue, that will go up for Gary to listen to. And while the work he's doing will come down, and I will be playing that back in my room as I'm balancing dialogue. So we're kind of constantly feeding each other. We could be in adjoining rooms, It's pretty slick the way we
Yeah, the way the workflow is set up, we've got straight connection to the ranch, so we can get access to what Gary's done and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah. Look, there are a bunch of big set pieces in the film. You got the train sequence that we talked about. I love the invisible fire trucks, barreling out of the warehouse. That's a great sequence. But I got to say, one of the things I really loved about the track on this film was when the sound design would get very subtle. And you had room to do that on a couple of occasions that really struck me that are, again, you guys talk about the theme of empathy, but the way you guys are using the sound to kind of indicate very subtle shifts with the characters. Obviously it was a genius idea to change the eye color when the characters would dive, but I also caught some really subtle textural changes in the sound when the diving sequence would happen, or when Margaret would read people's minds. So talk to me a little bit about those subtle things that you guys were doing in the track to kind of just reemphasize that empathy and that perspective shift.
One of the simplest things we did a lot for Margaret reading someone's mind with the cop in the beginning. It's the simple thing of taking the backgrounds and taking them out, and then focusing just on her and the dialogue, and just almost become mono dialogue. Everything drops away. And it happens several times when the cardinal shows up in the apartment, and when she sees a fox before the fire truck shows up. The world drops away. So that's easy. The diving scenes where very often Scanlon is diving in on Jane, or they're connecting that way. When I had all sorts of crazy, before I even saw the movie shot, I was experimenting with empathy sounds, right? So I bought a digital stethoscope, which is meant for recording body sounds. And I recorded a lot of that, but you can record anything. It's a contact mic, basically. You can record things. And I thought subliminally recording sounds that are that close would help. And there are good sounds and there are bad sounds. And so obviously good moments in the movie are more pure, and the controlling are a little bit more distorted. But in truth, I did a lot of things for those moments, but I pulled back a lot. There was a simplicity to them, and a lot of it because simplicity worked, but also the music was driving. There's a long scene between Jane and Scanlon that is a little bit of me, but it's so much John Williams and the score and the dialogue. So I pulled back and simplified, but because the music was doing a lot of it itself. But I was trying to find any excuse for a sound that felt internal. And I've got a huge library for the next movie or something, for all sorts of internal sounds ready to go.
And then I feel like there was another similar kind of subtlety to what's actually a very big sequence, but it's the whole point of building this replica of Margaret's house is to get her to access that memory of being abducted or going with the aliens when she's 10 years old. And I'm kind of in love with that sequence. It's I would say music forward, but it's the effects work in there is really subtle, but I think very, very powerful. And I'm curious about sort of the journey that you went on, Gary, with kind of designing that sequence and then figuring out how to make it sit with the score and where we ultimately ended up with it.
That was a scene that Kirsten Mate cut all that. The sound effects had to be not scary. There's moments towards the beginning of that scene you think this could be scary, but mostly you want to feel calm and even a beauty to it and a positive connection. Not even the shots that have an alien, you hear a little bit of the language and you see the alien. It was always meant to be calming and beautiful. So Kirsten cut, and she had the music in a good way to sort of cut against it. But the music's doing the same thing. It's telling you that this is meant to be, this is a calming and connected moment, not a scary moment. And so all the technology, the alien, the devices, all that kind of stuff are tonal sounds, again, stethoscope, other kind of somewhat pure sounds that are pleasant and not mechanical or of the earth. But that scene is very emotional because it does feel like going back to a memory. It feels like a memory, and it works really. It always worked. I think we reacted to it every time we went through that scene. How emotional it was.
I know the three of us are really happy with it, really proud of it, and I think I personally think, unless you two disagree, I didn't walk away leaving anything on the table. I felt we did everything that we could for the picture in terms of making sure Steven was happy, but also just, having a great time working on it. It was a really wonderful experience, to be honest.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on the Dolby Podcast today to talk about Disclosure Day. It's always good to connect with old friends and talk about the current work, and so it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having us. It was fun to talk about.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Many thanks to Gary, Brian, and Andy for joining us on the podcast once again. It is always fun chatting with this team. Disclosure Day is now in theaters and Dolby Cinemas in spectacular Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. We have links, as always, in our show notes. And if you'd like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, be sure you are subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to the show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. If you're curious to know more about what we do at Dolby Creator Lab, head on over to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of the show, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Kahn. Thanks for joining us.